Welcome to the Goal Podcast, news and commentary from Gun Owners Action League, your leading voice for the Massachusetts gun owner.
I'm Jeff, across the table from Garrett.
What's up?
You know, our first podcast together was October 16th, 2020.
2020, 4 years.
A little past 4 years.
4 years last week.
And today is 10/22.
Happy 10/22 as we record this.
I have to go out and shoot one this weekend.
It's right.
Are those even still legal?
Oh, God. Who knows?
Could one go out and buy and acquire a Ruger 10/22
right, the
from
quintessential
Cabela's or whatever?
Yeah. God, who knows in this crap hole? Maybe we can ask Mike when he's on a little bit later on.
Yes, we're going to be joined by Mike Harris, Goal's Director of Public Policy, to talk about the upcoming election cycle and some Goal news.
Yep. So what's going on out in the field? I haven't been out yet, but I know you have.
Hunting season has started.
Yeah.
It is in swing.
With a passion, with a fire, it's going.
Well, John and I have been out for 3 weeks. We're only really hunting 1 day a week just because we're working around property schedules and jobs and lives. And it's based on the convenience of the people who own the property. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's a great arrangement with the folks up there.
Yeah. So
you do what you can do.
But so far, I got my fall turkey on the opening day.
Right on.
First archery bird.
You told us last time you got busted by your first deer on the way out on opening day. You told us that story.
Well, revenge is a dish best served cold. So second day that was out there, had that what I think might have been the same buck walk out.
I choose to believe it was the same one.
That's what I'm telling myself. But walked right out in front of me, 15 yards, perfect broadside shot, just absolutely smoked him. So close, in fact, that you almost had it through and through. He was hanging on by the knock, I think. Yeah, the only thing holding the arrow in on the far side was the fletching. But yeah, he made it maybe, 50 yards. And within 15 minutes, the tag was punched. He was in the truck, and I was carting him off for the ceremonial field dressing.
Oh, yeah, right on.
And then this past Monday, had a group of 3 does start walking past me. And went to punch a doe tag and lined up, went to make a good shot, let it fly, and it wasn't as good of a hit as I wanted it to be.
Ruh-roh, get away from you.
Well, typically, and this has just been my experience, when you let that arrow go, the deer, they can hear it.
They hear it, sure. The sound gets there before the arrow does.
And they tend to dip down and turn away from you and take off running.
They duck and they bail.
So in anticipation of that, I was like, all right, she's going to duck, turn, and run once that string goes.
Try to compensate for that.
Tried to compensate for it. What I forgot to or failed to see in the grand picture was that she was walking up a hedgerow and didn't really have...
Oh, she couldn't make.
She had physical room to turn, but the visual was there.
So she didn't do that.
Instead of her turning away from me, she turned towards me. And it was one of those moments where you're so excited and so happy to let that arrow fly, and
damn it.
I truthfully I don't shoot arrows that I don't have confidence in.
Yeah, but listen, it happens. The fact that you feel crappy about it says a lot. It's not like you're unethical. It just it happens sometimes.
Very emotional high to very emotional low.
Oh, I know.
But I know it. Did recover, and I tell that story just for for other hunters or for people who are getting into hunting. It's there's a lot of talk about the successes and how great everything can go, but it's a reality of
sometimes it doesn't
encountering a wild animal that can make decisions and make moves that you're not necessarily prepared for.
Sometimes it just doesn't work out.
No, you got her processed. She's now in the freezer.
All right.
And getting ready for, upcoming sausage making and
there you go.
And burgers and stuff like that. But
that was the end goal.
But so far the season's been remarkable. Got my fall turkey right away, 2 deer already in the freezer. So good. Now we're working on punching some tags for John. Now I get to sort of play around a little bit and experiment. I'm going to try a few different spots.
Oh, right on.
Different spots, different wind patterns, different scent drags.
Expand the horizons.
Yeah.
Good. Well, there you go. Good stuff. Good to hear it.
But we have an upcoming hunting trip up to Maine.
I am looking forward to that. A few days up in Jackman with the fellas. Very excited for that. It's just about 2 weeks away. 2 weeks from tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So yeah, that's going to be cool. I'm sure we'll have some stories for when we get back from that. In the meantime, though, if we move into the guts of this episode, we got Mike Harris joining us momentarily. Like you said before, we're going to run down the elections because this is the last episode before big election day. So without further ado. All right, joining us right now, we got Mike Harris, Goals Director of Public Policy, from what looks like an undisclosed location somewhere, some deep bunker in in the wilds of Marlboro.
It's from my basement.
Cool. Thanks for coming on, man. Thanks.
Of course.
We appreciate it. So we're not going to take up a lot of your time. We just kind of wanted to run down the elections because this is the last podcast that's going to release before the election. Sneaking up on us.
Oh, boy.
So election 2024 is on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. And for those of you who haven't, voted early and voted often, that's going to be the day. So, so we wanted to kind of do the whole rundown, but then maybe, with your insight into the local stuff, maybe we can focus a little bit on the Massachusetts stuff because that's obviously important to us.
Yeah.
So way up at the top of the ticket, we all know that Joe Biden, the incumbent, has withdrawn himself from all right. He was thrown off the ballot by the DNC in July.
He withdrew himself. It was his own decision.
That's right.
That he tweeted.
For weeks and weeks and weeks, he was like, hell no, I won't go. And then suddenly over a weekend, it was yes, it's best for the country. But it was totally his own idea. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, he was removed or thrown off of the ballot in July, handing the reins and the campaign money, not to say too much about it, over to his Vice President Kamala Harris. So it's a toss-up between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris right now for the top of the ticket. At the federal level, the House and Senate. So the Senate, the U.S. Senate for Massachusetts, right? Elizabeth Warren is the one that's up for re-election this time.
She's up for re-election.
Ed Malarkey is not. Oh, did I say that wrong? Ed Markey is not up for re-election until next time in 2026.
Yeah, the emptiest empty seat that ever empty seated.
Empty.
Oh, that guy is.
Speaking of old politicians, that dude first was elected to the Massachusetts Chamber in the year I was born. 1973. I'm 51. I mean, for crying out loud, career politician, folks.
For the people who talk about how bad the system is and has historically been, the people who are saying that are the ones that have been in power for 50 plus years.
Right. It's like, if you haven't fixed it by now, buddy, I'd say your probationary period is up.
Well, based on the big dig, I guess that tracks.
So anyway, Lizzie Warren is a Democrat. Obviously, she's the incumbent running against John Deaton, a Republican.
John Deaton.
Yeah, local lawyer. Have you met him? We met him at the rally, I think.
I met him. Yeah. I think we met him at the rally. But I dare you to find the word Republican in any of his campaign letters or anywhere else.
He's registered as a Republican, but that's kind of it. Yeah, he's taking
but he knows what he's doing in Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's true. Right. He's doing the veteran Marine Corps thing. He's he's toting up all of his accomplishments, which are not insignificant.
No, he's great.
He's a qualified dude, and I like him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right. He's not playing up the R thing, which is smart for somebody in Massachusetts.
Of course, especially running against somebody who's unfortunately as popular as Elizabeth Warren is.
Right. Yeah.
In Massachusetts,
well, as ingrained in the establishment.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah. Because just by virtue of the fact that you're incumbent, never mind you're a Democrat, you're going to get a pile of votes.
I mean, she beat Scott Brown. To take that seat, and he was,
he was pretty popular at the time.
2 or 3 year incumbent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but whatever. We don't have to rehash that heartbreak.
So that's so we have just that one U.S. Senate seat up for reelection. All 9 members of Congress are up for reelection this time around.
Likely soon to be 8 after the next redistricting.
Oh, we're going to lose a seat?
Oh, I guarantee we're going to lose a seat.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Look at the population loss we have. It's crazy.
That is, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I think I'm sure you're right.
But look at the population gain. Not to put too fine a point on it, that other states have gotten.
Like a little subtle kind of. So as it is, all 9 members of the Congress for Massachusetts, the congressional delegation, as I guess they call it, are up for re-election. It's interesting to point out, we don't have to run the list, but it's interesting to point out that only 3 of those 9 seats are actually being challenged. All the remaining 6 are running unopposed. Damn it.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
For Massachusetts 1st District is being challenged by an independent Nadia Miron, who is, interestingly, Ralph Nader's niece, but she's running as an independent for that seat. And the other 2, Massachusetts 8 and Massachusetts 9, are being challenged by a Robert Burke and Dan Sullivan, respectively. I don't personally know either one of those guys, but
I don't really know them either.
Yeah. So that's the U.S. House.
We haven't really heard too much from either of those fellas either. But I don't live in their district either. So
yeah.
But it's also interesting to note that I think of the 9, I think 6 of those seats have been held by their current office holders since
Eisenhower was in office.
Since a year that started in 19, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that. It's like everything here is so, I use the word ossified. It's like everything is just so stagnated and
just dug in like ticks.
Like ticks sucking the blood off of the body politic. I like it.
But it does speak to, for all the people who want to see change.
Yeah.
Someone has to run against these people.
You're not going to get, hope and change by running the same freaking people every couple of years,
I think there is there's a much larger conversation to be had about the state of a certain opposition party in Massachusetts.
You are not wrong there.
Their inability to
manifest
garner attention for themselves.
To their inability to manifest a spine. Is that too on the nose?
Or a voice.
I mean,
or anything. I've always said this. This state, certain areas, like you look at the college areas and stuff like that. This state is not as left wing as people think it is. It's Democratic, or it's Democrat, but it's not left wing in the way that you would think it was. I think there's a lot of there's a feeling of hopelessness among a lot of folks who aren't left leaning. That leads to a little bit of apathy, and the Republican Party, the Mass GOP, is its own worst enemy in that they just fail over and over again to strike while the iron is hot. The last time they did it,
that's a fair assessment. Yeah,
the last time they did it successfully was Scott Brown.
Yeah, and that I remember when that happened. It came right out of left field, and we're like, "Wow, this is fantastic! We can actually do stuff here."
Well, I mean, if you look at that campaign, I mean, he actually got out in front of it and went and spoke to people.
Yeah.
You could say it to a lesser degree about Charlie Baker's 2015 campaign.
Yeah.
It was all he was all about the retail politics as well. And again, once again, it's Martha Coakley, but
one of the all-time worst candidates ever.
It's a matter of going out in front of people and actually like getting your message out there. If nobody knows what you're saying, there's no way to differentiate yourself from the rest of the chorus that people are hearing from, mainstream media about the Republican Party. They just assume everybody's Donald Trump,
right?
Or somebody that you don't like, and they just stay away from it when
Yeah.
that doesn't have to be the case necessarily.
Nobody believes in like nuance within the parties.
Yeah.
If you have an R after your name, you're automatically a MAGA guy, and
Yeah. In this state, they also don't give themselves opportunities. They don't seize upon opportunities to say things.
That's true.
Even if it's an unpopular opinion, saying it out loud and telling people what you think at least gives you the chance to, when I say get involved, I mean like actually be a part of the process in so far as becoming a candidate and becoming an actual viable political party.
Yeah. It is possible here. It's a stretch, but it is possible here. And
Yeah, and
Well, it begs the question, Mike, if a group is in such a minority where what would be the risk of them going a little rogue and saying
a great question,
and sitting in that informal session and going, nope, just for the sake of the fact that there's 5 of us or however many there are. It's like, I'm going to make you do it just because. And what are you going to do? Like, there's 5 of us. Like, we're probably going to lose anyway, but
you say, I'm a Republican in Massachusetts. I'm not going to get my way anyway. So in the meantime, I'm going to.
I mean, it's fear. When you're talking about state officials, like when you're talking about state legislators, especially in the House side, you're talking about guys who or people who have their boots on the ground in their districts pretty constantly. They're accessible, and they're the ones who actually bring the state funding kind of pork barrel home to their districts. And the Speaker of the House and Senate President have such a stranglehold of power over the budget and other aspects of legislative proceedings, where even if you're a Republican or even if you're in the minority party and you speak out, there's a potential that you could lose out on your budget. Earmark.
What tiny little slivers of bone that they choose to throw you can lose stuff.
You say, hey, I don't like this gun bill, and the Speaker says, oh well, I do like this gun bill, and I don't like your new turf field in your hometown, so you're not going to get the funding for it in the budget unless
you pony up and
and they could just say no. So next time when you go for re-election, they say, oh well, Representative Joe Smith didn't bring home the money for the turf field. So he wasn't successful as a representative. So we're not going to elect him again. We're going to elect the other guy who's in the Speaker's party because he's going to play ball and get the money for us for the turf field.
It's really disgusting. It really is disgusting.
So what you're saying,
cynical garbage, really.
If I'm interpreting what you're saying, it's very much a quid pro quo.
Oh, it's pay for play. Absolutely it is.
Yeah. You do what you're told. Otherwise, we will cripple you.
They don't even try to hide it, really. I mean,
no, they don't.
They don't have to. Right. Exactly.
They have the numbers to do it. I mean, we don't have to rehash the process that
we haven't even started the state stuff yet.
I mean, we don't have to rehash the process that got us to chapter 135. Without the numbers they have, they could not have done that.
No, there's no chance.
And there's nobody standing up on the other side. There are folks. I won't say nobody. You got Representative Charos down in the Cape area.
Yep.
Senator Durant. Folks like that who are actually standing up and making statements and saying things. But
other people are sitting in informal session flipping through their phone when they should be saying.
But I do see those people. But I do see those people voicing oppositions that seem to be doing okay in their district. So
I think they would do much better, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, I got to be honest with you. But that's what I was saying earlier. If you pick up a microphone and you say, and you get your message out there, there are going to be people that hear it and say, "Oh, hey, these guys have a backbone.
Yeah,
I'm going to listen to what they have to say."
Right.
And but like not even picking up a microphone and saying things and getting out there. I mean, it's horrible.
Completely sackless.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I would say, for all the people who Like, so going through this petition effort.
Yep.
One of the things we saw routinely and consistently was there was a certain volume of people that almost took pride in either not being registered voters, not voting, or not wanting to put their name on something. And likewise, in the legislature, I see a lot of people that we saw it with 4135 or 4885 or whatever iteration it was. The people that would come and say, I really disagree with what's going on and I don't like how this is going. And you go, okay, well, here's your avenue to voice your opinion officially. And they then pull back. They then back away. Either I don't want to register to vote. I don't want to vote. I don't want to sign a petition. I don't want to be on a list. I don't want to be in trouble with my coworkers on Beacon Hill.
That is how that works, though.
What is the solution to that sort of? Is it just apathy? Is apathy the right word?
I don't know if apathy is, but I mean, especially when you're talking about gun owners. I mean, I think we've talked about this before. Is firearms owners, especially in Massachusetts, we're our own worst enemies. I mean, it's been, since I started at Goal, it's one of the harder things. And we saw a huge turnaround with that, with the petition effort, which is great.
Yeah, 95,000 signatures.
It's amazing. Yeah, I think they're at 92,241. I think was the count.
Fabulous.
It's amazing. But traditionally, I think just the act of purchasing a firearm and having it on you or in your home for a contingent purpose, or self-defense, something like that, is an overtly political act, especially in this state, and it shows that you have the desire for at least a modicum of self-reliance of some kind.
Yeah.
And I think by the very nature of being firearms owners and wanting that independence really makes people not trust, and then to have that desire to be attacked by the state makes people not want to participate in the goings on of the state.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're our own worst enemies when it comes to, participation, because we've scared ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to be put on a list. It's like, oh, well, you got an FID, or you got an LTC
in your pocket, dude.
You have a social security number. You're on a list.
Yeah. You're on all the lists. So you might as well speak up for yourself.
Exactly. So it's a matter of kind of getting out of that mindset a little bit, which I got to be honest, I'm 100% guilty of. I mean, I'm a registered libertarian, for Christ's sake. I mean,
nobody says leave me the hell alone. Yeah.
I mean, it kind of just is. It kind of just is what it is, and I hate that expression. But I use it too much. It's not apathy. It's a distrust, and it's a desire to be left alone that is causing them to not leave us alone.
All right. Get back on the rails for a minute.
I'm sorry.
Get back onto the rails. So at the state level, that was federal. At the state level.
Well, kind of. I mean, we got into the state
we did.
stuff.
We did get into the state stuff. All right. But the nuts and bolts of the state stuff. The governor is not up for re-election this time. She's not up for until 2026.
None of the constitutional officers are.
Yes, exactly so. Yep. As far as the general court goes, the House of Representatives, we have 160 seats. All 160 are up for re-election. There are 14 incumbents who are not seeking re-election this time, including...
We have 200. We have 200. We have 160 House seats, and then...
I was just talking about House right now.
Did you just say that? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Garrett.
That's all right. That's all right. So in the House, it's 160.
I didn't mean to just mansplain the legislature to you. Sorry.
Well, we got in the House, we have 14 incumbents who are not seeking re-election, including 3 Republicans. We know Jay Barrows.
Huge number.
Yeah, it is really, and a lot of them are leaving to seek other posts and appointments.
Yeah, a few of them are.
So on the Republican side, we got Jay Barrows, Matt Muratori, and Angelo D'Amelia.
Yeah, Rep Barrows is just retiring. Angelo D'Amelia is just retiring. I think he wants to. I think he's got a business. I think he wants to spend more time on.
Right on.
And then Rep Muratori is running for Senate.
For state Senate. For state Senate.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So the current balance in the House, in the Mass House, is 133 Democrat, 25 Republican, and 1 Independent.
Who caucuses with the Republic? Who used to caucus with the Republicans?
Right. She used to be a Republican, and then she broke with the. Yeah. So she does whatever she wants at the moment. So I did the math, and we would have to net 56 seats in order to flip the House. I mean, stranger things have happened, but so that's the House.
I don't think there are 53 Republicans running.
I don't think so. On the Massachusetts Senate side, all 40 seats, like you said, all 40 are up for re-election this time around. 3 Democratic incumbents are not seeking re-election. So the current balance in that chamber is 36 Democrat, 4 Republican.
Which is a shame because Mark Pacheco is one of the only Democrats who voted against Chapter 135. He's actually pretty good. I like. He's always been a good friend of ours. It's a big loss.
Yeah, that's too bad. That is too bad.
Yeah.
And we would have to net 17 seats to flip that chamber. So according to a CNalysis poll or prediction, there's really 3 competitive districts the way that they see it. And there's Norfolk, Worcester, Middlesex is likely to stay D. It's Becca Rausch, I think. Third, Bristol and Plymouth is a slight tilt to the right. So I mean that could actually be a flip. It would be a slight chance of a flip, but it could flip to
Kelly, Is that Kelly Dooner?
I'd have to look it up. Yeah, I think you're right. Mm-hmm. And then the third one is Plymouth, and Barnstable is likely to stay solidly D.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that. Okay. That's the seat that Matt Muratori is running for.
Okay. All right. That was according to these analysis people, but yeah.
So
give us your thoughts on it.
So that seat was held by by Senate President Terry Murray before, and then when she retired, the seat went to Representative Vinnie DiMacedo, or then became Senator Vinnie DiMacedo, who's a Republican, and he held that seat as long as he wanted it. And then he retired to go and I think he works for a university down in Plymouth area somewhere. But Matt Muratori was his hand-picked successor for his House seat, and he reminds me. I'm a big Matt Muratori fan. He's a friend of mine. Just full disclosure, I like
the
Matt very much.
T-shirt gave it away. Yeah,
yeah, right. But no, Matt's a good friend. He's really really good on our issues. He's one of our he's one of the folks up there that would always call me with information.
Hey, right on.
What's going on?
Right on.
He's very good. I have to hold out a little bit of hope that he can take that. He can keep that, or he can flip that seat back to red. Mm-hmm. But I like
in Massachusetts, almost anything goes.
Yeah. But like you were saying, I mean, I haven't really paid attention as much to that race as I probably, should have. But we'll see.
There it is. So get out and vote, everybody.
Yeah.
Tuesday, November 5th, if you haven't done so already. I mean, we can sit and commiserate about the state of things, but if people don't go out and vote, nothing's going to change.
Well, and regardless of which candidate you vote for, it's important to understand their position on the Second Amendment and firearms owners' rights.
Exactly.
Because we've seen time and time again that the letter next to the person's name is not always an indicator of where they're going to land on things. So, for example, I shouldn't say all the most egregious gun laws, because Maura Healey decided to take that crown for herself. A lot of egregious gun laws were signed by Republican governors with no pushback.
In the past, yeah.
So even in your district, if you see, D versus R,
that's not necessarily
the
final indicator.
The litmus test for how they stand on Second Amendment rights. It is important to stay up on that.
And to say some nice things about some people. You have folks like John Zlotnick up in Gardner, who's a Democrat, gets 100%. He gets an A+ from us every year. He's fantastic. He voted the right way this session. Representative Turco in Winthrop is another one. He's unbelievable on our issues.
Excellent.
He filed almost every amendment for us in the budget session this year. that we wanted. He does everything we need him to do. He's fantastic. You got guys like Mark Pacheco, who are retiring, unfortunately, who was fantastic.
It was great for us. Yeah.
Yep. And I'd be remiss to not mention Representative Robinson up in Wilmington. He is probably the most pro-gun guy in the legislature, not just
on either side. Yeah,
on either side, and he is very, and he's a Democrat, and he's solidly so. But on our issues, there is no. I got to be honest. I don't know anybody who's better on our stuff than Representative Robinson is.
Oh, there you go.
Again, just speaking to Jeff's point, it's not necessarily the litmus test you think it is.
Yeah.
Just pay attention, take a look at it. If you go to goal.org/election-guide, if you go to goal.org, the election guide link is up.
There's a link on that top ribbon.
Banner. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, in that section, you can find our general election information, and we have our grading system is all set up in there. Letter grades for incumbents, number grades for anybody who filled out
the questionnaire.
New candidates that filled out a questionnaire. We didn't get a ton back this year, unfortunately. I think there's a lot of incumbents running this year. So
well, yeah.
Well, and it's been a very polarizing year for firearms legislation.
Well, and remember,
so
the majority of open seats are not even being challenged. So
exactly, and we didn't really hop on the endorsement train this year.
Yeah, we've been busy with other things.
Well, but but it was also a decision we made. We made sure to get the letter grades out there for everyone.
That's what's really important. Yeah, that's really important.
That's what's important. Given what happened and how everything occurred, and how things kind of moved after the fact, we kind of made the decision. We're like, nope, we're gonna pull back a little bit on
the endorsements. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. You're not going to stand shoulder to shoulder with certain people, but I get it, and that's a fine decision.
I don't want to besmirch anybody, and that's not what I'm doing. But it's also, a bit of the inaction on the back end of this thing.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to endorse people that fail to stand up for you.
We just don't endorse the legislature.
All right. I don't endorse government just in general. So, all right.
We don't endorse you guys.
Mike, thanks for coming. Before we kick you out of here, or let you go back to your life, I guess we could say, let's talk about goal news real quick. We usually do like a goal news thing at the beginning, but we didn't because we knew you were coming on. So, the Lucky 20 raffle is going on. You guys are gearing up for that. The drawing is going to be December the 19th at the office?
Yeah,
I think that was the date.
Yep.
A lot of really cool stuff. What's that?
Angie's running around like a chicken with her head cut off, trying to get all the raffle tickets done. Man, she's got the toughest job in the office when the raffle stuff comes around. She just the time suck for her to get those all finished. I just feel bad.
Huge effort.
Stacks of paper. Yeah,
it's a
enormous.
Huge effort because even people who buy tickets, quote unquote, buy tickets online, they don't get tickets sent to them because of the rules surrounding it. But the tickets still get sent. They still get filled out because they all got to go on the drum for the drawing. Yeah,
exactly.
So guess who gets to do that? And to keep track
Angie.
of all that stuff. So
she's
shout out to Angie.
Computer label thumb. Poor thing.
Yep. Yeah. Certainly doing yeoman's work over there. But it's. If that's the problem you have, that's not the worst problem.
Yeah, right. Having a lot of drawing entries is not a bad place to be. Yeah,
it's not the worst.
And hey, if it costs a case of wine, it's well worth it.
What else? We have the Marlboro Rod and Gun Club fundraising event. That's this week, actually.
Saturday.
Yeah, so I have this episode will release on Friday the 25th. So the day right after will be at
it's tomorrow.
Marlboro Rod. Yeah, right. As you listen to this, it's tomorrow. Come on down. Yeah. Marlboro Rod and Gun Club. There's going to be a food truck. We're not doing like a sit down dinner, but there'll be a food truck there. There's going to be raffles and networking, socializing, all that good stuff. So come on down.
Tons of raffles.
Yeah, some good stuff too from what I saw on the website. Looks great. Yeah.
We'll
ton
be
of
there.
stuff that was like a whole bunch of stuff that was left over from the president's dinner that didn't end up
Yep.
making it to
Yep.
the table, and a ton of guns and ammo.
Love it. Love
Some
it.
good stuff.
Really cool, man.
Of course, it's all compliant with Chapter 135. So I don't know how great it is, but
Compliance.
yeah.
And last but not least, Jim posted all over social media that you guys collectively, and I want to say a special thank you to you guys for doing this, ran through the guidance documentation and kind of revamped everything. Is that true? I mean, was it like a wholesale rip up and redo, or you guys kind of updated your findings on stuff? What happened there?
When the first summaries came out, I mean, there was, it came out at 8:00 in the afternoon, 8:00 at night, the day before they were going to vote on it at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
So, we were up till like 2 a.m. working on this thing. Like,
oh yeah.
You guys worked harder on it than the people who passed the bill.
Oh, dude, it was insane. It was insane. I mean, if we didn't read it, nobody in the state was going to.
Right.
But
exactly.
no, I mean,
exactly. The legislature sure as hell didn't.
Yeah. So, there were a lot of inaccuracies in our initial summary, and as we were going along and we were speaking with different attorneys, like, Jason Gaida spun me around on some interpretations I had on some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We'd been updating things as we kind of evolved our interpretation. At Goal, we kind of have to be the stick in the mud sometimes, as far as being careful goes.
Jim has said it. You guys have to be the ones that have to be like almost overly conservative about interpretations, because you're trying to keep people out of jail. This is not,
and that's
this is not like some abstract thing. This is like actual court cases and criminal filings and stuff like that. So you have to be careful about it.
So Neil Tassel actually came up with a good way for us to put it. He said it's your risk tolerance with a lot of this stuff. So
sure,
at Goal, we're gonna give you the most conservative interpretation that we come up with, because exactly like you said. I mean, one of our more important functions, I would say, at Goal is to give people the tools they need to stay out of jail.
Yeah. Sure.
And, still exercise their Second Amendment rights as insofar as that is possible. So even though, in the background, we're cheering for whoever bucks the system and challenges things, we're going to give everyday Frank the most conservative interpretation of things, and just the best route to stay free of prison. So which is not to say that there isn't room for other interpretations, and that if somebody took a different tack and was got themselves into some hot water, we wouldn't support any efforts to come up with a different interpretation.
You didn't follow our interpretation.
Exactly. Yeah. But how many times can I say the word interpretation in one sentence? But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we live. Is we have to live in like this conservative space where, we look like FUDs, but we're not.
Right.
There is some reality to, if the law says you have to do X or the punishment is Y, you have to assume that is what the law is.
That's what they mean.
You take it for face value.
Yeah.
If the state police, if Mass Fish and Wildlife, if the governor herself comes out and says, yeah, but we're kind of not going to enforce it, and we'll think about it, and it's going to be a learning curve. Yeah,
that's not a real thing.
That doesn't protect you when things go wrong. So it is important for at least someone to say, no. It's not what the state police say that they might do. It's not the role of the governor to say, well, this is kind of how I feel like we might enforce things to skirt issues. You got to look and say, the law says this. So when you talk about risk tolerance, like if you do X, the possible punishment is Y, and you need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily FUD lore or saying that the sky is falling, to simply say, hey, listen, this is what the law says.
The law actually says, whether they think they're going to enforce it or not.
And in my heart of hearts, I'm we joke around privately, but it's like compliance is voluntary. You choose to comply with the law or not. So to tell people this is what the law says in black and white as best we can.
This is what you risk.
And this is what the risk is that if that's acceptable to you and you feel like you want to compromise and skirt some rules to better protect your family, hey, that is totally your call.
Up
and
to you.
But that's not our role to sugarcoat things and give you possibly bad advice that could get you in trouble.
Exactly. I would love to take the position that, August 1st was the new bayonet lugs all around date.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But it's not.
According to the
according to
the actual letter,
the actual
black letter of the law.
So you guys, thank you very much for all the work that you've done. You have revamped all of the guidance. So since the beginning, we have avoided saying, this equals this equals that. We've always said, go look at the most recent, guidance and interpretations at the Goal website. So I don't repost, documents or anything like that. It's always a link because that link is always subject to change. So it has changed and it's actually kind of a significant change. So go back to goal.org, check out the, chapter 135 page, look at the interpretations and take a new, fresh look at it just to make sure that you understand what the most recent interpretations are.
I think that's the most prudent way to go about it.
We will let you get back to your evening. Thank you very much for joining and give us so much time. We really do appreciate it, man.
Anytime. It's a joy.
All right.
Steal a word from our vice president.
It's a joy. We're bringing joy. All right, brother. Thank you very much for joining us. Mike Harris, Goals Public Policy Director.
We'll see you Saturday.
Yeah, see you Saturday.
See you guys.
So yeah, good to have Mike on. Good to get perspective stuff from the office, especially around local elections and stuff, really is important. Get out and vote, folks, It
is. And we're going to need a new spate of people that are running for office.
Oh God. Yeah.
I know a few people that are planning on announcing that they're going to run. And it's even for local small level stuff. And as much as people want to be left alone, and I feel for that. If you want to see,
if you want things to change, man, you got to step up.
What was the Gandhi quote? Be the change you want to see in the world.
Something like that. Yeah. Sounds good to me. You got to be that dude. All right. Anyway, moving on, we had a little bit of Supreme Court news. A case that was pending has been sent back down to the 11th Circuit. This is USA versus Lorenzo Garraud-Pierre. I had not actually been very familiar with this case, except for basically the name and what it was. So the defendant, Pierre, was convicted of possession of a firearm by a felon under USC 922G, and he appealed to the 11th Circuit. He appealed his conviction to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, arguing that his conviction was unconstitutional as applied. So this is an as applied challenge, not a facial challenge, under NYSRPA versus Bruin. In March of this year, the 11th Circuit, of course, rejected his appeal and upheld his conviction, which, after which he sent his appeal up to the Supreme Court. But that was denied cert and sent back down to the 11th Circuit to be reheard under Rahimi. So the initial part of this happened before Rahimi. And then, the Supreme Court denied cert after Rahimi said, you got to rehear this. So that's the groundwork. The thing is, from my perspective, rehearing this under Rahimi doesn't really resolve this guy's question, in my opinion, because Rahimi was a facial challenge that held that a person who, quote, posed a credible threat could be temporarily disarmed without violating the 2A, right? That was the finding. This case seems to be asking whether a person can just be permanently disarmed based, not on a credible threat, but on status. Right? Somebody applies a flag. They call that flag felon. Therefore, you are always and forever prohibited for exercising your right. I don't think Rahimi addressed that.
No, I agree with you. They're kind of fundamentally different questions.
Yeah. So And this felony flag includes those felony convictions that have no component of a threat to another person, some white collar crime or something like that. It's felony, blanket felony means you're prohibited for life. So yeah, I don't think that it answers the question. So in my opinion, the 11th Circuit is obviously going to rehear this, or they'll give it a cursory rehearing, for show. They're going to reaffirm their own earlier decision. And then of course it's going to have to go back to the Supreme Court. What is your read on this?
I mean, it's the bigger philosophical conversation is, do you believe as a principle that self-defense is a human right? And if you do, then how do you square the conclusion by the 11th Circuit that some lives are worth defending up to and including, the necessity of using lethal force, while others are worth defending, but not to that same extent? So on one hand,
all right, I hear what you're saying.
So on one hand, the court, I'm assuming this guy's whatever he did to end up in that position,
felony conviction on his record,
has paid whatever debt, whether you believe the criminal justice system is about,
he's not in prison. Yeah.
Whether you believe it's about retribution or rehabilitation, that particular court said, okay, you're otherwise find a return to public life, get a job, pay taxes, go grocery shopping. Like, you can hold elected office in positions in the federal government as a felon. You probably even go up in their estimation. But, forever you're not allowed to vote, to have an official voice in who holds that elected position that you could fill. And forever you're not allowed to access the tools to defend your life under the most dire of circumstances.
That's nonsense.
I mean, I would argue if the government is saying that your freedom is contingent on permanently forfeiting your civil and human rights, then civil and human rights, they are not.
Speaking of the Supreme Court, another post-Bruin thing, New York State's Bruin temper tantrum law that we've talked about here suffered a setback this week when U.S. District Court Judge John Sinatra Jr. ruled that the section of the law that said all private property was by default a sensitive space. Remember, we talked about this when the law came down, and therefore prohibited firearms carry is unconstitutional under Bruin. So they said, a private property owner has the right to say, you can't have a gun here. That's private property. The government cannot step in and speak for that person and say, nobody has the right to carry a gun here unless the private property owner says so. To me, it's against private property rights. It's against, individual liberty. It's against the 2A. It's against all that stuff. You don't get to just unilaterally declare that everywhere is a sensitive place. In direct, I might add, contravention to the Bruin decision.
But then if everything's a sensitive space, then what is a sensitive space?
Exactly. Right.
Define that for me. What makes my home particularly sensitive compared to somewhere else?
Precisely. Did you see this Marquette University poll?
I did not.
So the Marquette University is I think it's a Jesuit college. I forget where they are, but they did a poll. 70% of the respondents to this poll on this particular question favor the Supreme Court decision in NYSRPA v. Bruin, with 40% strongly in favor and only 12% strongly against. So,
but as with any poll, it all depends on who you polled, where you polled them.
Exactly.
It's like you can come up with poll depending on where you go.
If you're standing in the parking lot of the RNC, you're probably going to get different numbers than you would in Whole Foods. Yeah.
Well, 'cause they love to trot out polls that say X percentage of gun owners agree with whatever cockamamie plan that the gun controllers have.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, who did you poll?
Yeah, right. So anyway, that's out there. Update on the Lewiston case. So on October the 15th, a group of 100 survivors and family members of victims of the Lewiston shooting filed notice with the federal government of their intent to sue the Department of Defense, the Army, and the Keller Army Hospital for negligence, for failing to respond to an act on warning signs that the shooter was going to, go on his rampage that he went on, killing 18 people and wounding 13 last year. before we move on, it's just interesting that, in cases of suing the government, you have to file a piece of paper that says we are going to sue you in cases of suing the government. So
you're aware it's coming.
Yeah, right. Well, divine right of kings there. The government gets to have that privilege. Since the time that the shooting happened, a governor's commission in Maine, the Army Inspector General, the U.S. Army Reserve, they've all investigated, and to varying degrees, they all found that reserve soldiers unit, the chain of command, the Army, the hospital, they've all found them all kind of at fault to varying degrees for failing to intervene. I mean, we've talked about it here. We talked about it when Jim was on. You and I have talked about it. The signs were all there. That this individual was gonna do something, and a lot of people failed to act on it. In particular, so Jake Fogelman, he's a guy that writes for The Reload, argued that although the Federal Tort Claims Act does allow the families to sue, I mean, it's still pretty hard to fight the government, For those of you who don't know what the Federal Tort Claims Act is, it was passed in 1946, amended 1988. Basically, before the act, if you tried to sue the government could just say sovereign immunity, and throw you out. So what this does is it allows certain claims for damages against government employees under certain circumstances, like they're acting in their official office, or if they were a private citizen, also be subject to tort. So technically, you're allowed to sue the government. Realistically, though, the government has pretty much bottomless pools of money and lawyers, and things like this usually end up being settled out or dragged on for years and years until the people seeking recompense,
and with taxpayer money, of course. So really, they're just giving the money. They're giving the people their money back a little bit.
Endless buckets of taxpayer money. And I think that's what eventually is going to happen here is that they're going to settle. They're going to settle for a giant bucket of money. They're not going to institute any real reforms. They're not going to fight it out in court because both of those things look bad for the Army and the government, right? Because if you institute reforms, then you're admitting guilt. And if you fight, what are you going to do? You're going to send a government lawyer to court and, face off against a family member of a dead victim. That's not going to look good either. So I think they're going to settle out. I don't know if anything's really going to change. Maybe that's the cynic in me. I would like to hope so, but...
Well, it's certainly a no-win situation, and nothing you do is going to erase or negate the tragedy that happened.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've been of two minds on this. Part of me really it sympathizes with these survivors and families' position of wanting to hold the federal government accountable, wanting to hold the Army accountable, Department of Defense.
Yep.
And to say, but for their lack of action, this wouldn't have happened. But that's opposed to my other principled position of I disagree with red flag laws on a principled basis.
Yes, the individual responsibility part of things.
And at the end of the day, the responsibility for what happened rests at the feet of the individual who took that action.
Oh, yeah. Yes, but the adjunct to that argument is that if you're going to have red flag laws or yellow flag laws in the case of Maine, then, if you're going to say how effective they are such that everybody in the world needs to have them, then the least you can do is enforce them when you have them on the book.
Well, it's certainly a glaring error in the scope of that argument. Now, the question would be what's the middle ground there? So from my position, red flag law, yellow flag law, I don't care what it is. If he has not committed a crime, there's nothing you can do about it. Otherwise, charge him with a crime. Charge him with a crime, take him to court, and go that route.
Yeah.
In this particular case, while I don't think that they hold the responsibility for not violating this individual's civil rights to the extent of it could have potentially prevented something in the future. What I would have liked to have seen is under these circumstances where they see someone who is so obviously struggling to hold it together, someone who is on the verge of lashing out violently.
Yep.
Where was the intervention? Where was the feelings, we want to protect people, we want to save lives. Where was that spirit and inspiration when that person was standing there going, I am about to lose it and I am going to hurt people?
Yeah.
That person asked for help and they effectively chucked him the finger and said, best of luck to you.
That is, I follow in that position as well, because the outcome of this, or the proper course of this thing, does not necessarily have to be a red flag law, right? It's not red flag law or nothing. They could have intervened in other ways, like getting this guy some freaking help.
Violating someone's rights is not the only way to help them through a crisis.
Right. You could have supported him. You could have gotten him treatment. You could have, there's any number of things that you could have done.
And
barring, And
let's say that they red flagged the guy. Let's say they red flagged him. They confiscated all his firearms. They hauled him into court, publicly humiliated him, dragged him around, called him crazy, ruined his reputation. And then what?
Yeah.
All right. Bye. See you later.
See you later.
Best of luck to you. Go get in your 6,000-pound truck with a tank full of gas and don't crash it into a bunch of people.
Yeah. So
they had the ability and the opportunity to intervene with a human being who was struggling, who clearly had problems. And I'm not trying to sympathize with this individual.
Oh, no.
I'm not trying to paint them as the victim of anything. I'm not trying to paint them as in any sort of sympathetic manner.
That person owns this completely.
But, for all the talk about feelings and emotions and all the mental health stuff, here is someone that so clearly
needed intervention and help.
Needed some level of intervention.
Yeah, and he didn't get it.
And so the only available option they had was something that's wildly unconstitutional, which they didn't follow through on, which,
that I hope is part
of that argument.
But will come up during the arguments in the court case. So this is a civil thing, right? This is suing for damages. You're liable to a certain extent for not intervening with this guy. And I hope that part of the discussion that comes out of this is that alternate, form of intervention. Maybe you don't have to base everything on, well, you didn't red flag the guy. Maybe it's like, well, where was the mental health support, or where was, all of that stuff. So anyway, I hope that comes out during all this. I guess we'll see. We'll see.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening in. Be sure to subscribe to the Goal Podcast and check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Goal Podcast MA, on YouTube at The Goal Podcast, or on Twitter at Goal Update.
To join Goal, visit goal.org and click the Join or Renew button right at the top of the homepage.
If you have a topic you think we should cover, there's something going on in your club or town, or if you have a question for the mailbag, shoot us an email at goalpodcast@goal.org.
The Goal Podcast is a production of Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Goal, its staff, or affiliates.